Okay. Good evening.
Bang,
We'll
bang.
call to order the September 21, 2015 meeting of the BUHS 6 Board. Welcome everyone. First meeting of the new school year. And as is our tradition, we'll start with the clerk's report. And approval of minutes, our last meeting, which was August 17th, 2015. And the minutes have been circulated. Is there a motion?
I move the minutes of August 17th as presented.
Second.
Ricky, okay, and second Lori. Okay, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes of August 17th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
I better abstain because I don't think I have a chance to review them.
Okay,
Sorry.
everybody else voted, okay?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, they are approved. Okay, communications. Are there any communications tonight? No? Okay, anything else for the clerk's report? All right, if not, we move on. Recognition of groups or individual visitors. There appear to be none of those, so we will move on once again to consent agenda.
Do I move to go into consent
Yes.
agenda? That's what I do. I move to go into consent agenda,
Okay,
please.
Lori.
Second.
Second by Ruth. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Mhm.
All in favor? You moved it, are you also in favor? Okay, we are in consent agenda and we'll start with finance.
Finance Committee met on September, no, that's not right, August 19th. And we approved warrant numbers 1240 and the amount, 1240 in the amount of $13,828.68. And 1241, the amount of $1,661.86. And then,
Those are not on the agenda. I don't think.
no, they're not on the agenda. Don't know. Those are left over from the last fiscal year.
Oh, okay.
Then we approved warrant numbers 1012, 1013, 1014, 1016, 1017, 1019, 1018, 1021, 1022, 1023, 1024, 1025, 1026, 1027, 1028, for a total of $903,209.37. And we authorized payrolls, payroll of 710 in the amount of $397,890.20. And 724 in the amount of $422,909.16.
Okay, anything else? Was there, I was not at that meeting.
Oh,
but-
you were not at that meeting,
Yeah, so I
that's
can't
right.
help, but I saw
All right,
the agenda
we
was.
went over the preliminary fiscal year end results
Yeah.
and discussed the status of the photovoltaic consortium of schools request for proposals.
And the transfer of funds to the capital reserve from the general operating fund.
Yeah.
Thought that was,
Yeah, we did do that too.
okay.
Yeah. 250,000
It says
or
up to
$250,000.
$250,000
yeah.
And it was from where to where?
from the general fund to the capital fund?
Oh, oh,
And it was, again, I wasn't there, but I talked to Frank about it shortly before and shortly after. There was the operating and the operating part of the fiscal plan operating part of the budget was ran a little under budget. So there are funds in there, and we did not put any money into the capital fund this past year budget, if you recall. We had been putting 150 and we didn't do it this year. So Frank's recommendation to the finance committee was that we transfer $250,000 to the capital reserve fund effective June 30th for the end of the year, which is within the bailiwick of the board and the finance committee, in this case acting as the board, to do. So that helps us get our capital fund, and the operating budget is still under. So we will have some reserve. I believe do you know what the number was for the budget, end of the year budget surplus? Was it about 400? That's what.
I did not write it down, and my memory is too short to remember.
I remember the last time we weren't quite to the end of the year, and Frank was, and maybe I will wait till he gets here and he can tell us, but we were going to be coming in under budget, so it's not going to impact that, and it'll help us get a little more back into the capital fund, of which we use some for the auditorium roof.
How do we save so much money? I guess I should have came to
Well,
the
it's a
finance
big
meeting.
budget, Laura, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but on 27 million, I
That's
mean,
true.
I'd like to say it's good management in a lot of cases. Not that we were, it was a padded budget or anything like that, but this continuously over the last few years, the staff and Robert and the operations people have worked really hard to, save money where they can. And so we have it's not a huge surplus, but it'll be in the black, so to speak. So that's why that was recommended.
Good work.
And
everyone.
if you have any further, Frank can fill you again. I was not at that meeting, but I think that's a prudent adjustment of funds. So, is the next meeting scheduled, Ruth, for finance?
This
Next
Thursday.
meeting, I presume, is this Thursday at 8 o'clock.
It is.
Yep, I have it on my calendar, 8 a.m.
I don't think the warrants have been posted yet, though, have they?
I don't believe so.
Well,
So
hopefully.
if they get posted, I hope they get posted tomorrow. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to read them all.
You
have
have
to
to look
read
at 5
really
and
fast.
No, why not?
Yeah, there's a lot of them to read. Yeah.
I noticed that's warned for the conference room, but I thought this Thursday was the walkthrough that the.
Yes, that's right.
So it is
It's
here.
warned for the central office conference room. Good catch. This will be the walkthrough with Robert. And we will, we can also, if there are warrants to approve, we can do them, but going through and looking at what things that were done over the summer and maybe talking a little bit in advance of budget over some of the things that might be upcoming. So we meet, where should we meet? You're gonna be
We
part of
have
the
planned
tour,
for the
right?
high school lobby at 8 o'clock.
High school lobby at 8 o'clock. Okay. All right, I'll make a note of that, and we should have it in the minutes that it is. We're warning by way of the television anyway.
If anyone shows up, you can just send them.
Yeah,
over.
send him up, yeah.
And you're walking through high school and BAMS and WRCC?
Pretty much, yeah.
To kind of look at summer projects and how they're going.
Yeah. Okay, so next meeting, Thursday. Yeah, I was the one that kept asking for this, and I forgot the menu had changed. Okay, how about WSESU finance? Anything there, Russ?
We met on the 26th and approved warrants, payrolls, and wire transfers. We did a preliminary review of the year end as well, and things were looking good there. Had a brief discussion of the Act 46 consolidation, an update on the photovoltaics. Sounded a lot like your meeting. And our next meeting is next Wednesday, September 30th, so a week from Wednesday at 6 p.m. in the Jim King Room, Central Office.
Okay. Thank you. Planning and policy, Ian is not here.
We haven't met.
Not met, okay. Teacher curriculum,
Has not met since our last meeting.
BAMS committee.
BAMS committee met on September 2nd. We met with Keith, and we also got to spend a little bit of time with Tom, the new assistant principal, which I think was really nice to be able to, for us all to do, to get to know him better. We also got a little brief how the beginning of school went for BAMS, and talked about some upcoming parent nights that were going on. And then we approved the last 2 hires to get all the staff in place for BAMS. So a new technology integration specialist and the Beams director. So we're good. So.
Good. Thank you, Ricky. WRCC has not met.
We've not met, but we did have our RAB meeting.
Yeah, we talk about that when you get
Was
to
it
your-
last Tuesday? Yes,
Yeah.
I'll let Michael talk about that. It was a very good meeting.
Good. All right, anything else for consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
I move we approve consent agenda.
Okay, second?
Second.
Lori, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, it's passed unanimously. And we will move on to administrative reports. And we'll go through those who are here. Ron and Frank are both expected to be here. They're down in Vernon. And thought they might be here by 7:30 or so. So in the meantime, we'll listen to administrative reports. And how about we start at this end this time, just for kicks?
Thanks, Mike.
WRCC.
So, a few items I want to report out on tonight. This summer, we had a very successful STEM program, 2 weeks long. And those of us that don't know what STEM means, it's science, technology, engineering, and math. I always forget that either.
For those of us that don't know.
That's right, meaning me. And the 2-week program was designed to introduce 8th and 9th grade girls and 3 7th graders we had to the world of STEM. The girls had an opportunity to experience electricity, velocity, geometry, chemistry, build wooden toys, computer animation, create an app for their cell phone, and digital filmmaking. The teachers were all highly qualified professionals within their field, and we were extremely fortunate to have them. We invited girls from all the Outlay and area middle and high schools. Participants came from Whitingham, Hinsdale, Putney, Dummerston, Newfane, and Brattleboro. For our first year, we felt that our enrollment of 13 was very successful. Most of the girls attended both weeks, but due to outside commitments, a few were only with us for one of the 2 weeks. It balanced out quite well. The girls arrived at 9 o'clock in the morning for breakfast, followed by a brief morning circle, and then off to the first class. Transportation was provided for anyone within a 10-mile radius as well. Jana Crafts was our coordinator, and she did a fantastic job with the program. And I'd like to have her and a few students actually come in and present to the board sometime this fall. It was a very successful program, and hope to increase our numbers for next year. See, on Thursday, 9/17, our horticulture, forestry, and construction students attended the Hillsborough County Youth Center Foundation Construction Days located in New Boston, New Hampshire. This was a great experience for our students to interact with other students from New Hampshire and being able to operate large construction equipment. And the kids had a blast, they said. Our business, construction, and horticulture students will be attending the Big E Fair on October 2nd, as they do it for as many years in the past. And this is a great opportunity for the business kids and construction and horticulture students. Just started going last year. And they have to interview all the vendors for a project they do during the morning hours, and then they get to have a little fun in the afternoon. So it's a day well enjoyed by all the students. This past Tuesday, last week, we had our first RAB meeting of the year. It was a great turnout. We had 2 groups present. One was FBLA, and they explained what they do throughout the whole school year. And they highlighted their summer conference that they attended in Chicago, Illinois. And 3 students that were represented were Tyler Germain. He's a junior, current president, and statewide vice president of FBLA. Molly Adamanek, a senior, second year as a historian, and Greg Wood, he's a senior, and second year as a treasurer, represented the chapter. These 2 students did a great job, represented FBLA as always, and Barb Vinci and Mary Beth Cornell, their advisors were also present. And Janet Krass also presented a nice PowerPoint and explanation of the summer program. And I also posed a question to the RAB committee and board what they would like to see at our future meetings, and they did compliment the group, saying that what we've done in the past by presenting our programs, we usually pick 2 or 3 programs to present at a RAB meeting, and the students explain what they do in their programs and what they enjoy about the programs, and the committee felt that that was a really good use of the time, sharing out what goes on at the Career Center. So we'll continue that process this year. And that's it.
The summer STEM program, would you be ready to talk to the board about that in October? I think that's a great one. I think the people watching at home would be interested in that.
Which meeting?
Well, we're going to have 2 meetings in October. Typically, we've done it at the second meeting. There's no reason we have to, and since we haven't had any board education yet, if that's not too quick.
When is it?
That would be the 5th. There's no, other than tradition, which probably was started by me, the second board meeting of the month, but I don't know what the logic was of it, but we could do it on the first board meeting of the month, right?
Yep.
If that's,
If that's doable,
yeah, if that's doable.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you just let me know, we'll reschedule it for the 19th.
Okay.
So,
Will do, thanks.
okay, that's a really hot topic all around the state, is all the STEM things. Going to be useful information, time well spent. Okay, BOHS administration.
Thanks. So I guess I want to open by acknowledging that this probably was the hottest opening to school we've ever had. We had a good 2.5 weeks of solid temperatures in the 80s and above. And I want to recognize the grace of our staff and the tenacity of our students. It was a tough way to open the year. And one of our new math teachers, kind of sort of tongue-in-cheek, not really, they did a daily graph of the temperature, and they kind of extrapolated where the temperature was going to go. So they made the best of it, but I do want to acknowledge that it was really trying conditions for the students and the staff to come back and to have the first week of school be that warm. And there's nothing we can do about it, obviously, but I just wanted to acknowledge their hard work. Also new this year, we're beginning our Next Gen Science program, and we're beginning this year with an Earth and Space Science. And I've had the opportunity to walk through a couple of times, and as a science teacher myself, it's been really great to kind of re-engage with that. It really is not your traditional earth and space science. It really is a look at earth and space science and where students fit into resource management in the world. They've started off with some very interesting discovery labs and inquiry labs, and I'm really excited to see where that course is going to go. And I'd love to have the board kind of hear from Michelle and Ben, Laura, and the rest of the teachers, because it's a really exciting program, and the kids have been really engaged in it. It's fun to see. So IPS is gone now. We had that for many, many years, and that's now replaced by Earth and Space. And as I said, they did a lot of great summer work this summer, and now they're seeing the fruits of that work as they begin to teach it. Fall sports have kicked off, and again with the heat, we had a number of games rescheduled and moved due to the new heat index rule that the VPA instituted, which was a great idea. That there's a certain combination of temperature and humidity. Games are either delayed or moved to a different start time. Some games were played in the morning on the weekend, and some were moved back later in the evening to kind of compensate for that. I just came from the JV boys soccer game over on Sawyer Field, and it's really great to see the enthusiasm and to watch those players. And right now our varsity boys are playing, and that's equally exciting to see. I also want to note that the field hockey is having a great season. Last year new coaches came in to try and reinvigorate the program, and new coaches who have been here for a while. But Ms. Markle and Ms. Liberdone are doing a great job with the field hockey. And of course, our football team is seeing some success. It's been a while since we've had success, and right now they're 2-2, and which brings me to the next item, which is homecoming, which is this week. And we're really excited about homecoming. We've started off this year. We started with Pajama Day today. No, Mr. Longman did not participate. Tomorrow is Tie-Dye Day. We have Twin Day, Superhero Day, and then we culminate with Purple and White Day on Friday. So if you come in and you see people dressed strangely, there's a reason for that. A lot of fun being had with that. And Friday we'll do our fall sports pep rally. And then Friday night we'll begin our homecoming games. There's games Friday night, there's games, Thursday night, Friday and Saturday. If you get a chance, come out and see the Colonels compete. A lot of great enthusiasm this year on the field. Also new this year, we've revised our ACE period. An ACE period is a Tier 2 intervention, which is designed for small groups of students. And it's either for remediation or enrichment. And this year we went to a full week of ACE period, and so our schedule has been changed this year. On Mondays, students go to their traditional advisory class. They're scheduled for the week in ACE period by their advisor, unless their teacher has previously scheduled. The nice thing about the software we're using is it allows students to go online, and they can actually request to be scheduled with a teacher online. And they can also have a conversation with teachers. And in the few short weeks, we've seen a lot more students taking the initiative and scheduling themselves now that they understand how it works. And so they're saying, okay, I need to work with this teacher and this teacher and this teacher. And on Tuesdays through Fridays, they actually go in ACE periods from 1:20 to 2 every day. And a number of students in my advisory have commented they really like, especially athletes have remarked that they really like the time to meet with their teachers if they're leaving early for a sporting contest. And so they really appreciated that time. We do also new this year, we've welcomed a new driver's ed car, and I want to thank everybody for their support in helping with that purchase. Our driver ed car was getting long in the tooth anyways, and then late August we had a recall, and it was recalled for the driver's side airbag. And for some reason the driver ed teacher didn't want to be in the passenger seat, which I totally understand. So we kind of did a cost analysis, and we also looked at the type of recall. And what we call Toyota Corporation, they let us know that they were prioritizing states with high humidity and high heat as they did the recall. And so we were down on the list because even though it was 80 degrees at that time, we were still considered a low priority state. So we did make the choice to purchase a new car, and we took receipt of that last Friday. And we've started to use it. And so students are happy with driving again. We were unable to drive because we had to park it because of the airbag issue. So we're kind of pleased to have that back on the road again. Last Thursday, we had our open house. It was fairly well attended. We did a quick welcome in the auditorium, in the newly renovated auditorium, which looks great, by the way. And then parents went on to follow their child's schedule for the rest of the evening. And most parents, had a great time, reported they really enjoyed seeing their teachers and kind of hearing about what kinds of things they were doing in their classes. Finally, as BUHS begins its move towards a proficiency-based graduation system, this year we're focusing, we're thinking small, we're actually focusing on our classrooms, and we're asking teachers this year to kind of continue the development of their content standards, kind of link those content standards to the transferable skills, which we've agreed as a faculty are the skills that we want our students to have when they graduate, and also kind of adjust classroom practices. As part of that, we've really begun embracing as a school the idea that we're going to look at a growth model for student intelligence rather than a student coming in and saying, I'm really bad at math. The answer to that is, well, you're not good at math yet. And we're really trying to get at the idea that intelligence is not fixed for students. And a student who is good in English can be good at writing and can be good at math, can be good at science. And the idea that we all have some ability to learn as we develop. And that's a big part of proficiency, is the idea that you have the tenacity to continue to try things as you develop. So more on that as we continue that work. So, any questions?
Well, a thought, the Earth and Space Science, we could really go out of tradition here and have a second board education session in October before we get into the heavy load of budgets. If you thought those, because I think that's a great thing for us to hear about too. And once we hit November and we start getting into the budget thing, that kind of, other things kind of get put aside. Do you think your presenters would be, that would be for the second meeting unless Michael's group needs a little more time, and then you could switch around. That would be the 19th. Any?
I think that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, sounds good.
I do too. I don't think we can have too much education.
It is a school.
We're tenacious.
We're going to be a bright bunch here. Keep educating.
Well.
So why don't Mike and I coordinate if his...
Yeah. It doesn't really matter as long as we know, Barb knows in advance enough to put it on the, well, actually, yeah, we usually put the topic on, I guess. But yeah, so it doesn't really matter which is which, but if the two of you coordinate, we'll have two education sessions. Make a note of that. Let's call it, define as Earth and Space Science.
Next generation Earth and Space Science.
We got to start calling everything next gen.
We do.
Okay. Mr. Lyman.
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm happy to report that the school year started very smoothly, at least from my perspective, and everybody's working hard. I wanted to reiterate what Mr. Parent had said about the heat. It was just pretty incredible and rare, I think, to be that extreme for that long, and the kids and the staff were amazing. I mean, some of those classrooms were upper 80s and humid, and to put 12 and 13-year-olds in there in that setting, let alone the adults, I was pretty impressed. Of course, it was the first week and a half of school, so they were probably on their best behavior, but we had very few issues, and I was really happy with that. Around that same time, we did change our structure this year. With our work with the Tarrant Institute and our summer work through the Middle Grades Institute, where we sent all those teachers up north, we made some decisions about educating parents about the work that we're doing. And what we decided to do was, in the past, some of the teams have done like welcome back potluck dinners or ice cream socials. But some teams did it, some didn't, some did it every other year. We decided to kind of get rid of the traditional open house, which would normally happen right around this time, and have all 4 teams do a welcome back potluck or ice cream social kind of thing. And at the same time have a, as part of this combination of work with Tarrant, informational night around the use of our Chromebooks. And part of our work was we wanted to make sure parents came in and saw a presentation and committed to signing off on paperwork saying that they had heard the presentation and they understood what we were doing. And so we had the Chromebook and the open house kind of thing all at the same time, and some of them were really well attended. I would say one of the teams was probably represented by about 80% of the parents and kids, which you don't get that at the open house. And we were way over what we planned for as far as chairs and stuff. People were standing, so it was a good problem. I was really happy with that. And we're committed to getting parents to come in and do this in order for us to send the Chromebooks home. And so we had 4 team nights that we were there. I did a presentation on the technology. We did a makeup night, and that was pretty well attended. And we still have of course you'd expect more than a handful of families that haven't been able to make it. So I videotaped one of the sessions using a camera, and we set up a computer in our main office in their conference room for parents who weren't able to make any of those to come in and watch it on their own and sign off on the paperwork, trying to really establish that parent home to school connection. So far I've been happy with that. Our in-service work this year was a lot of it was focused on our work with the Tarrant Institute and personalized learning plans, which you'll hear a lot about PLPs. And we spent an entire day with our representative from Tarrant. Her name's Rachel Mark, and she'll be in tomorrow morning at 7:30 to run our staff meeting, working on personalized learning plans. Thursday morning meetings are teams again working on personalized learning plans, and we're collaborating with the high school and the other schools in the district to make sure we have a personalized learning plan that will work. Hopefully we can get it so it's a 7 to 12 collaboration, so it works smoothly 7 to 12. So I'm pretty excited about all of that stuff. Switching gears, I wanted to, with some staffing changes this year, we had a need for more personnel than we had, and I wanted to thank Michael, and one of his teachers, Amy Anthony, is willing to and able to come over and teach a class that we needed to. We didn't have the personnel to teach, and she's teaching some robotics and kind of some computer stuff in the afternoons for us to fill a need. And it's a nice way to kind of expose the kids to the Career Center, let them see it, see what's over there, and also meet some of the staff and also to fill a need that we had. So excited about that. And they've done that multiple times since I've been here.
So the band students went to the Career Center for that class?
They go over, yeah. I mean, it was set up for over here, but she felt like it was easier to expose them to what she wanted to do over there. So
That must have been a nice experience for them.
yeah, they're doing it right now. Yeah, seems to be going good. So.
That's tech ed requirement kind of?
It's a tech ed class, yeah. Daisy Frederick was teaching the class, but when we hired her full-time, she took over somebody else's schedule, and I didn't have anybody to fill out. She was doing like 1 period a day.
Yeah.
To ask somebody to come in 5 days a week for 1 period and have that endorsement was pretty challenging to find somebody. So it was great to have that collaboration with them. 2 more things, getting to current things. This Wednesday we have a special assembly. We have a guest speaker. His name's William Harris. He primarily does motivational stuff with Vermont schools. He branches out into New York and some other areas. And he initially was started with more athletic kind of stuff, but he does a lot with kids around doing the right thing and being responsible and all those things. So he's meeting with each team. There's 4 core teams this coming Wednesday, and excited to have him. High energy guy, and sometimes it's good to get those messages from somebody they don't know as opposed to the same people. Last but not least, Team Draco has been fundraising for they just did a 3-day trip. They went Wednesday, Thursday, Friday up north. The bulk of the time at Camp Abenaki in North Hero. And they've been planning this trip for a long time. They fundraised, I think the last I looked, they had like $8,000 in their class account to raise to go towards this trip. And it was an amazing display of collaboration, interdisciplinary work, teamwork to coordinate the whole trip. They got buses together and planned all the details, but they basically went up. So their theme was past, present, and future. And so they started with a trip to the Billings farm on Wednesday. Then they went and toured Ben and Jerry's. And then they went to Camp Abenaki. That's where they spent their evenings and camping and everything. And they had beautiful weather, and the camp was incredible for them. And then the present part of it, the future part of it was they ended with a stop at UVM and working with Penny Bishop, who's the director of the Tarrant Institute, met them there. And they talked a little bit about PLPs, and they got to see the campus and all of that. So to try and expose them and kind of get them geared up for their future. So I was very proud of the teachers and the staff. There was a whole bunch of them who went and helped chaperone. So yeah, any questions?
What is Draco, you said?
Team Draco, yes.
What's that? Is that one of your 4
That's one of
teams?
our 4 core teams,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 8th grade class. The other thing I would say about that trip was it makes, a lot of times teams do end of 8th grade year trips. And one of the big benefits of a class trip is the relationship building that you have on the buses and touring wherever you're going. And they were talking about how they do that at the end of their middle school experience and all those relationships, and they just send them off to high school. So they wanted to work on those relationships sooner. So at the beginning of the school year, doing the trips so they can build on all the relationships and everything they have throughout in the beginning of the year. So I really like that concept. Obviously the challenge is fundraising. If you don't have the full school year to raise that money, it makes it a little hard. But so yeah, very proud of that experience for them.
Are you thinking about doing that again, or it was really an initiative of some of the students?
It's kind of the initiative of the team, you know. They kind of talk about trips and that kind of stuff. It's not something that I forced on them in any way. But they do, you know, then they can blend a lot of that stuff into their curriculum and that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a really good idea.
Yeah.
So what about the Chromebooks, Keith? If the parent doesn't have an opportunity for whatever reason to view the videotape, is the student still allowed to get the Chromebook?
In school.
In school,
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm not sending them home without that.
Okay.
And there'll be some that don't want to send them home, and no, it's fine. It's fine as long as the student's able to access what they need to access. So if there's a home with, you know, 3 computers at home, they never have an issue getting on to go into their school account and work, then why should I force them to take it home? But especially lower income families, they don't have computers at home. So this offers that student, it levels the playing field in a way for low, especially either lower income or kids who just don't have access to a device. So it's working across the state with the schools that are doing it, and we know that there's potential issues with the internet access and that kind of stuff, but we're trying to sort through it. And I've been really happy with the parents coming and participating. So.
Good show.
questions for administrators? If not, I have a couple of quick items, and hopefully Ron and Frank will be here because they have 2 items they want to go over with us, and we don't have too much in the way of unfinished and new business. But I would start with, well, actually, I'll start with the VSBA meeting. We are having our regional meeting here at Brattleboro this coming Thursday, and it's the first time I think in quite a while.
I don't recall ever coming to one in Brattleboro.
I don't think I've ever been to one in Brattleboro either. And this is a regional meeting. They break these up into, I think, 7 or 8 regions, and the SBA staff will be here, and also the commissioner secretary there, Rebecca Holcomb, will be here. They've changed the title of that position within the last couple of years, and I still have trouble remembering which it is.
I think it's the
Secretary of Education. And it's a great opportunity for meeting some of the other school board members in this area, Wyndham Northeast, Wyndham Central. There's about 5 supervisory unions. And Ruth has been to several of these regional meetings over the last few years.
I don't think I've missed one since I've been
probably
on
not.
board. I thought I might have to miss this one, but I'm going to be able to make it.
Okay, well, that's good. And I would hope that perhaps some others could see their way to attend it. It's, as we get into the implementation of Act 46, there's a lot to learn about, and that's one of the major topics of this one will be Act 46 implementation and what the SBA and the state has to offer for assistance working with school boards in this venue. It's at 5 o'clock, and is that going to be in this room? Do you know? Is anybody?
I don't know.
I registered today, and that was my question too. I just knew it was here, so
Yeah.
I'm coming, but I just found
Yeah.
I didn't know where on campus it was.
Yeah, I thought about that today too. I
It's here
registered and
somewhere.
said, I wonder where it is. I assume somebody will be putting up signs or whatever, how to get there. It typically has a little bit of a bigger crowd than what this room would take, I would think.
We've done it here and we've done it in the NPR.
Multi-purpose room, yeah. Is there somebody that has been in contact with you at all about?
Not with me directly, but they might have done it to Kathy or Ella. So I'll check with her.
Yeah.
I'll find out where it
It'd
is.
be good to let people know, and it sounds like one of the multi-purpose rooms might be a little more
Yep.
appropriate. So that's coming up.
Yeah, I think there may be a larger crowd because Ms. Holcomb is coming.
Yeah, she is.
Because last
is
year
really
she came and it was a
interesting
pretty good
Right.
sized crowd.
She's really dialed in and makes a great presentation and asks questions, takes input and feedback and so forth. The other thing that I want to just briefly deal with is our board planning session back in August, and I wrote up some minutes from this, and I apologize in advance. There might be possible things were missed. It's sometimes difficult for me to take notes and participate at the same time. I think I've gotten down most of the main points, and I'll pass this around, and we can, if there are questions, I'll just quickly go through what I had down for 2015-16 action points. So I'll send a bunch that way and a bunch that way. Seems like it was a long time ago we did this, doesn't it? Just about a month ago.
Yeah, just about a month, a little over a month, but it seems
Yeah.
like a long time ago.
Yeah, we started with, we reviewed last year, and I won't go over those again, but we did pretty well on attacking the things that we had planned to last year, with a couple of exceptions that we didn't get to. But as we discussed the 2015-16 action plan, that's kind of on the lower half of the sheet there. The notes that I made showed that we were going to make sure we do a board self-assessment. We were going to support administration and implementation of the Common Core. This is a full board as a board. Support the WSCSU action plan as it relates to BUHS. Ron reviewed the action plan, and there were many items there that applied to us as BUHS board members. Support proficiency-based learning initiatives and personal learning plans as outlined by administrators. Look at there, number 5, attend BSBA regional meetings. I hope that people will get a chance to get out at least to one of these regional meetings because they're most helpful. And then we kind of looked at things by committee, and the Finance Committee is committed to updating the capital plan again. Our focus will be in areas of security, HVAC upgrade, athletic fields, and lighting, and the Whetstone Village property that we have. That actually will come under the WRCC committee as well, probably. Also working with the business manager on photovoltaic project, Affordable Care Act compliance, and the endowment funds policy. We want to review all the endowment funds and how we handle them, and if we should be making changes and how we address them. PCC will continue timely review of policies up for renewal. Last year was the big one, which consumed much of the time, was the dress code. I don't know that we have any big controversial ones this year, but there are many policies that are due for review. So we will attend to that. The TCC talked about literacy, working on the PL personal learning plans, and review of 1% funds effectiveness, which you kind of started doing this year, is to actually take a look back and say, okay, how did the 1% funds, were they utilized and was the use effective? BAM's support for our new administrator, assistant vice principal, and support the new learning initiatives, the programs that Keith is working with. Career Center Committee, continue to support the SREB Alliance Southern Region Education Board, right? Our agreement with them, and support advocacy and public awareness of WRCC opportunities and programs. So if there's, I'm sure I didn't hit everything, but I tried to capture the main areas.
The only thing, I don't think it necessarily came up at that meeting, but dealing with Act 46 consolidation is something we're going to need to address.
Right, that's
So
true, the full board. Well, I think that probably comes into the SCSU action plans as well, but that's a good point. Yes, there'll be much talk of that. So that's my take on it, and I'd be happy if there's any other people think of something else that we left out, but that's a body of work to keep us going for the next few meetings. You see, we have a guest.
Yes.
Did you want to have anything to discuss with the board, or you?
I'm new to town, so I was just interested in
Oh, that's
seeing.
wonderful. And your name?
George O'Connell.
George, well, welcome. We'd love to have people come and watch our activities. We're well into this meeting, but you're always welcome. As you can see, there's usually adequate seating for the public. Thank you.
Come and bring your friends and neighbors.
Okay, so I've timed that just about perfectly.
You've been stalling, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been talking real.
It was perfect.
All right, so I
I
don't
think it
know
was
if you,
planned.
did you take any action on the VSBA dues?
No, because I didn't have a note as to how much they are.
Okay, so
Now I do.
now you do.
Okay,
It's
would you
within
like
your
to-
budget, that'd be great.
It's within our budget? Yes, it is. Okay, we have, as we do annually about this time, have a invoice for VSBA dues. And in addition to the regional meetings and all that, the VSBA does do a lot on our behalf. Everything from advocacy to superintendent searches, and not that we need one of those, but there's a lot of services that they provide, and we obviously are asked to pay some dues for that. And the annual bill here for 2015-16 is $3,361.04, which we have budgeted for, but we would like to get a board approval of that expenditure and continued membership in the VSBA.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we pay the Vermont School Board Association annual dues in the amount of $3,361.04.
Second.
Okay,
How they came up with that number?
the 4 cents.
Does anybody? Well, even the dollar for, yeah.
Equalized pupils that you have.
Oh, that's
Based on
equalized
pupils.
Because
There's a formula.
there had to be formula there somehow.
I want to hold back the 4 cents. If you do well, we'll give you that last 4 cents at the end of the year. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed or abstentions? All in favor, all are in favor, and it is passed.
So the other thing I wanted
Action
to
on
do
that.
is give you a fact sheet on Act 46.
Some to go that way too. or-
They've got theirs.
Oh, okay.
And I know Frank is coming from Guilford, because I just left him, and he wants to talk a little bit about the photovoltaic system. So as that's coming around, we do have enough for guests as well, so.
That's one for you, yes. Oh, I didn't take one. Thank you.
So there's been a lot said and written and whatever on Act 46. Frank and I primarily, along with Lyle Holiday, have been to a number of Act 46 meetings that the Agency of Ed has sponsored, and also the educational associations, the SBA, School Board Association, the Superintendent Association, the Principals Association. So we started to look at, so what is it for our district, that we would come away with if we were looking at the pre-K through 12 board as opposed to 6 different entities. So I'm not going to go through this whole document, but there's certain items that I think we should spend a little time on. The first are the goals in terms of equity, quality, fiscal efficiency, and sustainability. One of the things that I talked to the Agency of Education about is we don't have small school districts that are in jeopardy of closing. Most of our smaller schools are 110 to 120 to 180 students. So it's not like we're in a district where we have a school with 30 students with very little educational access or equality or equity. So I don't see that as a factor in this impact to our district. But as we start to look at, so what are some of the benefits in terms of the issue of equity for students and educational opportunities, we just started to brainstorm a list. And we've been showing this to each school board, and as we do, we have revisions to make, and worked with it at our leadership meeting last Friday with all of our principals, and it caused us to think of a few other things. But I think this first bullet, increased course offerings for smaller schools, is a real benefit. Things like foreign language, technology integration, enrichment, and wider range of after-school offerings. Some of the small school districts just can't afford these opportunities in their budgets. And one thing that I'll mention right off the bat is when we consolidated special ed last year over a 2-year process, the impact financially was that we saved $300,000. So that's a good thing, but I think overall the benefits, the special ed services actually were enhanced when it went through the supervisory union as opposed to individual districts. And for a lot of the reasons that you'll see when we talk about some of the benefits. The second bullet, Title I services available to more students. Right now we're in a system where schools have to qualify for Title I by the percentage of low income and students that haven't achieved a certain rate of proficiency on their standardized test scores. So many of our schools are Title I schools, but there are at least 2 schools that don't receive Title I federal money for remediation because they don't have the number of students to qualify, but they certainly have a number of students within their small school that would benefit from that funding. So again, it's kind of pooling the resources, and as a supervisory district, you'd have the ability to target the money where it's needed as opposed to the federal regulations that are saying, oh no, you're not a Title I school, so your kids can't get the benefit of that
Are they
funding.
not Title I because of the percentage?
Yeah.
It's because of the percentage.
Low numbers, and they don't have the percentage of students that qualify under the current system. These other bullets, in terms of ability to hire full-time staff, again, it has more to do with smaller schools. I know in BAMS in the high school, we have had shared staffing that has helped us attract quality educators, especially in foreign language where you might have a percentage of a position where then you can match it with something at BAMS and then attract a full-time person. Preschool, I think, is a big issue here. Head Start coordinating programs. Again, more at the elementary levels, obviously with preschool. Open preschool spots for Guilford. Vernon Elementary and Putney Central School have been able to develop preschools within their schools. We have a lot of preschool partnerships throughout the district, but Guilford has really been trying to find a way to open a preschool in their school, and it's very costly. And what this would allow us to do is Head Start under the entity of Brattleboro Town School would now be under the supervisory district, and we could use Head Start slots for Guilford along with other Guilford students, preschool students that would come into the system. Again, it would create a viable program where by itself Guilford probably couldn't afford to open a preschool. But again, using federal money to do that would be a real enhancement.
Ron, I noticed that you said supervisory district, and I know you
Yeah.
said that on purpose, but just remind me again what the differences between the
Yeah.
district as it
Right.
may be.
So supervisory union is what we have now,
Right.
a union of multiple districts, and under the legislation, a supervisory district would be one entity serving all of those schools. So it would, rather than have 6 individual school boards, we would have one pre-K through 12 board with representation similar to what this board has had,
Is it more or less exchanging the word supervisory union for supervisory district? But of course, then the governance would change.
Yeah, the
too.
governance changes is the big thing. Yeah. And then all of the enhancements as we would think, along with the tax incentives, and I'll talk about that a little bit. One thing we've looked at is like for the WRCC, the Career Center, there might be more opportunities for places like Putney and Dummerston where they have middle schoolers, at least 8th graders. Whereas BAMS has the benefit of some of that programming. It might be geographically difficult, but I could see how Dummerston might want to transport kids for an exploratory program on a regular basis. Because if it was at the end of the day, those school buses are coming here anyway, so they could probably get dismissed after they do their exploratory program at the Career Center. Those are just some of the things that we've been thinking about. Again, I'm not going to hit everything. you've seen some of this, but certainly purchasing on a larger scale helps lower costs, technology, textbook supplies, custodial services, facility system management, energy management practices. A lot of the schools are going to the wood chip boilers, and that presents some challenges for one custodian or lead custodian that, again, having the benefits of more of a facilities management approach would be helpful. As I said, budget implications, special ed costs, as a supervisory union or supervisory district versus an individual district. For a school district that was going out on their own to try to afford special ed, it would be a huge impact as opposed to, as I said, in consolidating special ed throughout the district, it saved us $300,000 just this year. We're expecting financial models from the Agency of Ed. This is really important because then we can apply what the incentives will look like versus what non-compliance will look at. And the incentives for the accelerated merger, in other words, doing it in a year, that's the 10-cent tax reduction the first year, and then it goes down to 8, 6, 4, and 2 over those 5 years. A conventional merger would be a year away, so that would be the 8, 6, 4, 2 cent reductions declining each year. And then the non-compliance, which really isn't that well stated in the law, but I think one element of it is the small school grant will go away for any district that doesn't, want to unify, and that has a big impact on small schools. And then there's the caps, the tax caps, and I think by 2018 or 19, it's a 5-cent penalty tax for a school district that doesn't really take an option of some sort of merger.
The financial models, when will it, approximate time frame?
Well, when we went to a meeting in the end of August, they thought mid-September, and then I went to another meeting recently, and they said, well, it's probably not till mid-October. Did I say mid-September 1st?
Yes.
And now it's mid-October. I'm actually Frank and I are going to a meeting specifically about Act 46 tomorrow. So we're hoping to get more information about that. And quite frankly, I think what Frank realizes is that he's going to have to take a few districts and actually just create a model. What the current budget looks like, what the tax impacts would be, what the equalized pupil numbers would be, and then plug in the incentives or the penalties. And I think that's what we're going to have to do ourselves.
But it's hard to plug in any numbers for some of these things, these savings.
Oh, yeah, you're not going to get it from
Yeah,
this, right,
yeah.
right. It's really just what's in the legislation about the
Yeah.
incentives versus the penalties.
Yeah, and everything else will be
Yeah.
just gravy.
Yeah, and, boards have asked, well, then we're going to save a lot of money? I'm not looking at this as cost savings as much as it is pooling the resources and providing equity. I hope there are some savings. I think there will be. But it's not like we're going to cut our budgets by 10%. That's not realistic.
Ron,
Yeah.
I've had a couple of different people, specifically from Vernon, because Mike's not here, I guess I'll say this, that were concerned that they had heard with Act 46 that school choice would no longer be an option for them.
Yeah,
That there was something in the
Yeah.
legislation that made that not a viable thing.
There's about 7 districts throughout the state that have a special tuitioning arrangement like Vernon. And every time we talk to people at the agency, they understand that they need to accommodate that because they probably hadn't considered that in the way the language is. But there's a revision process. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I know I have it written down. But with any legislation, they do a what are the implications, what hadn't we thought about, and do some sort of thing that I can't remember. But they'll have to look at that, because it's going to affect those neighboring districts to New Hampshire and New York that have those arrangements. The other question for Vernon is, with Vermont Yankee closing, over the last 4 years, they're getting a 25% tax increase each year for 4 years. And so next year is the second year of that 25% hike. And what we're saying is, well, what if they come into the supervisory district? They're supposed to get a 10-cent reduction, and what about those tax hikes? And the head of finance at the AOE said, that's something we hadn't thought of and we need to consider. And because, you know, if you want to make an incentive, you can't then just bury them with those
Right,
other
that other
taxes.
stuff, right.
So maybe they hopefully will delay those other increases while they get the benefit of an incentive,
Or
if
the
that's the
reduction.
case.
Yep.
So those are considerations that we've voiced
Okay.
with the agency. Yeah, they're important. Coordinated financial services, you can see that. As one group talked about with Rebecca Holcomb, the Secretary of Education, local control is not what school boards control, but what the community brings to the school. And one of the things I said last spring when we had an initial supervisory union meeting about this is, I really hope that we would develop school councils. The Agency of Ed has used the term school-based councils, and the idea is that you would have an advocacy group for each school, which would be made up of the board representation of the SUSD board. It would be the principals, it would be parents, community members that would be advocating for their school. As I said, our intent with this sort of merger would not to be closing any schools because it just wouldn't be a viable option. So we would want to make sure, you know, this issue of local control, we would be saying, look at the principal, board representatives would be intimately involved with that school along with parents and community members. And I think as we work right now, that's the case. I think this board is a great example of decisions by consensus. I don't think when you make decisions, you're saying, well, this is good for Brattleboro, but who cares what happens to Vernon or Guilford? It doesn't work that way. You're looking at it as all of your kids, and that's how we look at it in this scenario. You know, one topic we had last Friday was the whole issue of all means all, and we're talking about students. And I use this phrase, every student, every day. That's what we should be thinking about. And I think this gives us the best opportunity to think that way, that they're all of our students. It's not like, well, we're going to do something different for Guilford students versus Brattleboro or Vernon students. They're our students, and we want to create a program that is really high quality, that has equity and financial sustainability. And we always know that we have to balance programming and access and good quality education with the ability of the taxpayers to fund these programs. And I think that's been our history in this district. I don't think that will change. I think it will actually be enhanced. So I spent a lot of time on this. Didn't think I was going to do that, but sorry.
Well, that's all right. It's important stuff, and we're going to be.
Well, and I don't know, I can't speak for out of the board members, but I know that I'm getting a lot of questions about this, and I didn't have a lot of education, so the fact that you spent a little extra time than you thought on tonight, I think is good for me, so I can field questions.
Great.
Because I had some members in the community say to me, so basically, how are the board members gonna do that? Does that mean they're basically gonna have board meetings every single night to deal with all those issues? And you're gonna have professional board meetings, professional boards? And I said, I hope not.
No.
Because that's not what I'm gonna, I don't wanna sign on to that, you know?
Yeah, it's very similar to the sport.
So,
The school districts, BUHS does not do this, but the other school districts have to vote intentionally to serve on a study committee for this process to continue. Dummerston, Putney, and Brattleboro Town, and then just tonight Guilford voted to adopt the concept of a study committee. And what that means is it's a committee that their charge is to look at the options under Act 46 and to see if it's viable for not only their districts but the overall supervisory union. So the way it will work is each small district will have one representative to that study committee. Brattleboro will have 6, and that's Brattleboro Town. But I've asked Brattleboro Town, and they've confirmed it, that they really only want to use 3 slots. And what I'd like to do is use 3 at this board level. And we can talk more about that as we get further down the road with the study committee. But I'd like to talk to people about their interest in serving on this study committee, as it would represent some of the other schools, like Guilford and Vernon. I think it would be really important as the smallest schools to have representatives from this board on that study committee. Brattleboro will have 3 town board members. I would hope that Woody would have a chance to be on this board. or on the study committee, because I think he has a great perspective in terms of the BUHS Union High School Board and how it operates 3 schools within the board. So we'll get you more details about that as we formalize things.
As we go along, we will have a timeline model, how this would
Absolutely.
actually be implemented.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna come pretty quickly.
Yeah, if we do the preferred model, it would have to go to town, every town meeting would have to vote on it. And we would have to have information meetings at each district, in the fall.
And if that were true, I mean, if you vote on something at town meeting in March,
Yeah.
isn't the implementation in the following year?
No.
Or
So that next year?
For, the
Yeah.
year,
2016-17 school year,
I
yeah.
see.
In which case you're voting on your budget at the same
Right.
time.
And that's where those models will be important.
Yeah, because you have to set up your budget based on the model.
Yeah.
But the BUHS district annual meeting would not vote on it, is that correct?
No, that's right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be the member union districts.
right.
But then, in theory, if we had our regular annual meeting, BUHS number 6, in February, March, the town meetings happen, if the vote was happened to make this happen, then there would have to be some sort of special meeting to nullify the meeting that we had in February.
I think the law
And the
does
budget,
that.
I think the law automatically
Yeah, I think
does
it
that.
For union high school.
But there'd have to be some sort of a nullification of what we did in
Yeah.
February,
Definitely.
because it would mean having 2 budgets.
Yeah.
No, I
Well,
think-
again, we'd prepare for that.
Right.
So, I mean, we'd know, these are the programs that we have and that we need in BUHS 6, and I think we'd have those programs no matter what scenario it was.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the towns have to vote to approve involvement with a study committee. When the time comes, any town, does every town have to vote to be part of the district in order for it to happen?
Yes, for the preferred accelerated
Preferred, okay.
program merger, every town would have to vote affirmative. If somebody doesn't, then it takes that off the table, and what they call it is a conventional merger, which
Okay.
would be the next year where
Next year,
one town doesn't have to be part of it, they just have to then justify how they're gonna operate as a sole district without 900 kids,
yeah.
and the costs associated with that, so.
And then they would get, based on the conventional model, you would still get some tax reduction,
Yes.
but the start at 8%.
It would kick in the second year at 8 cents.
Okay.
Yeah.
8 cents,
Yeah,
yeah,
8
not
cents.
8%.
Just a little clarification on that. So yeah, the district exists as of July 2016, but the budget and the planning for that budget doesn't take effect until July of 2017.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So we're going to deliberate over the fiscal year 17 budget in just a few weeks.
Right.
And this budget starts July of 2017, but we would call that fiscal year 18. So there is this 1 year
Yeah.
where whatever we do.
Where it's the one set of governance, but
Yeah,
another set
yeah.
of budget
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that, it makes sense, but thank you for clarification.
Yes, thank you. So you might have questions?
I know we've reviewed this, it feels like it was forever ago though. The same towns that make up the supervisory union now would make up the supervisory district if all towns vote
Yeah.
for the accelerated
Right.
model.
And if there was another town, like a neighboring town like Marlboro that has shown interest, they wouldn't be able to come in the first year, they'd have to come in under a second year as part of the modified merger. But they could, it's just that it's your existing districts that decide the first year.
Yeah, I just have to say, I think that these discussions are really helpful. The other main committee I sit on is the SU Budget Committee, where, I'm used to sitting next to people from other towns. But it's very different because, whatever town we sit on here, we face the same meeting in February. But at the SU Finance Committee, the person from Guilford faces Guilford Town Meeting, so it's a unified committee, and we and then the SU board oversees special ed and English as a second language and those sorts of things. We supervise all 5 towns for the high school and career center and BAMS. But I think that the hard decisions will be at the local school board. Here, I guess we'll all be out of office and whoever wants to run can run again, because this board eventually would be disbanded then. But it would be another similar 5-town board. The other boards would be, haven't had that experience yet unless they've served on that big committee. So that'll be a big transition, and it is really quick. That's coming up. I mean,
your example of this supervisory union finance committee is a good one in terms of that whole consolidation of special ed. There was a 2-year process in terms of considering the impact on every board, every budget, and coming up with a system that made sense, and I think it's worked out really well.
We have all the curriculum planning and English as a second language or learned language, whatever it is. And one thing I think is really good that I haven't seen as clearly is this handout that you have, which is, I imagine there are a lot of districts in the state where there isn't as much, of a unified, of a union district and those sorts of things. So that I feel very good of what we've done at the supervisory union level in terms of, or the district level, in terms of bringing in special ed and all those sorts of things. So that so many of the gains that people talk about, we've already captured. We've already captured so many of the economies of scales and those sorts of things. But this is really helpful in being specific about what the towns here would benefit by this. So
I want to clarify too what you said, Russ, about all of us being out of a job, but I think the opportunity to have whatever you want to call them, councils, advocacy groups for the school, which include both administrators and board members. I think there's going to be plenty of place for just about everybody that wants to serve their community school to do so. I just, technically yes, but everybody would have to be elected to one of their local, or to the advocacy council, or whatever you call that, or decide to call that. But that, I think, actually might be as effective in a lot of ways because of parent involvement and administration involvement. Might be very effective.
I thought I saw Ruth's hand up earlier.
No, I'm hands holding my head up.
So how will that board be determined?
I'm sorry?
How would that board be determined?
Well, just as it is now, in terms of you run for an office in your local district.
Okay.
So there would be the same sort of representation. I often thought at the beginning of this thing, and I don't think it's possible, I'd love to see 2 board members from each small district. But I think what would happen is you'd have a board that would be too large when you get the
You'd be
Brattleboro.
back to your 17-member board.
We've lived through that, so that wouldn't work.
So would people have to take out a petition
Yeah,
again
I would think so.
in December? Because
Well,
if we do the accelerated, then
Yeah, I'm not sure of the time frame of that.
I think you'd probably have a special election, just as we did when we
when we
pushed
shrunk.
this board down.
Yeah, because that, the way that timeline worked then was the town meeting, it was voted on to shrink the size of this board, and then
Then
it
you
was,
had an open
and then
election.
we had to have a special election in June, and everybody had to rerun for a seat in June, to start July 1, basically.
So that would make sense.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. There'll be a lot. I don't know if I mentioned VSBA, the School Board Association is hosting a regional meeting this Thursday here.
Talked about it before you got here.
School, so.
Encourage attendance.
Yeah, it'll be great if you're there. All right, so Frank's got some update on solar stuff.
The solar project that we've talked about over the last several months. So here's a handout. It's a PowerPoint developed by Competitive Energy Services. And I can take just a few minutes. We're looking for decision on November 5th, so we have plenty of time between now and then to have you consider this proposal, and if you have questions, I can do some research and get back to you, but if I could take maybe just 10 minutes and fairly quickly go through this, scenario of where we're at.
You know what? I got I've seen it already several times. Not that it's not outstanding.
Okay, so this is our net metering proposal that we started exploring all the way back in July of 2014. A group of folks, including myself, organized a number of schools, supervisory unions, as a consortium, knowing that there was an awful lot of individual proposals that were being presented to various school boards in isolation. And the net metering law that was legislated by the Vermont, the rules were developed by the Public Service Board, and the Vermont legislature created the net metering law, enabled individual entities to move forward. But there is a fair amount of legal context to sort through, and these are 20-year agreements, so they require a clear sense of the commitment and the opportunity. So as a consortium of schools, we have asked Competitive Energy Services to go out and engage the industry, look at our best interest, understand the net metering laws, and then come back to the school boards with a proposal to consider. So this is something that started in July over a year ago. We went through a very rigorous bid process to both select the competitive energy service representative on our behalf as school boards, and then to engage, turned out to be 11 developers that responded to the RFP, and now we have the summary of that result in front of you. So there's a little bit of background. The slides 1, 2, 3 we just covered. 4 illustrates the growth in the industry of photovoltaic solar projects. It's a substantial increase over the last several years, and Vermont has had a great deal of participation in these contracts. This group on page 5, you see, is represented by several supervisory unions. The group on page 5 over there to the right has us on the list, and there are several others that are now hoping to get in on this proposal because it's actually much better than we expected, and it does depend on the developer's capacity to produce electricity as to whether or not we can let more folks in. But this is a decision for each school board. There's about 50 schools represented in this list, and we anticipate most of the schools to take advantage of this proposal, but if some drop out, there are others, I think, that are very interested in getting in. In total, it's a $12.7 million kilowatt hour consumption currently that is being paid for through just the standard market rates between a school and Green Mountain Power. The next couple of slides go over the process that was undertaken to make sure we did have competitive proposals and that we had a specification that met the net metering rules. Page 8 shows the summary of the discount. And you see in the last bullet on page 8 a 22% net savings. Many contracts have been signed for 10%, 12% around the state, so we were very pleased with this result. The actual discount at this point is 2 vendors, one at 35%, another at 32%. The reason why you don't see those numbers on this page is because myself, along with the Competitive Energy Services and others, don't recommend that we put 100% of our consumption into this agreement, just to allow for continued energy savings initiatives and/or some maybe unforeseen change in the way our buildings are utilized. So to get from 32% down to 22, it's simple math. It's if we put 80% of our electric bill into this agreement, 80% times 32% is about 25%. And then we're going to pay CES based on the bid process to select them. 10% of the savings, so if they're saving us 32% through their effort on our behalf, we're sharing 3.2, 10% of that, 3.2 with them. So 25 minus 3 gets you down to 22%. So that's a net number. It could be better than that, but we are quite confident it'll be at least that.
So the contract is the equivalent of pre-buying heating oil or something where you've signed up for a certain number of kilowatt hours. So your general drift is to pre-buy 80% of your electricity needs. And if we had energy savings of 75% or of 25%, we'd still have to pay for the 80%. I mean, that's why we're not going to the 100%.
It's a pretty good analogy, but there's a couple of things that maybe make it confusing. So this is not a fixed rate kilowatt hour cost contract. We could have asked for that, but we felt that that's too hard to predict. So this is a fixed discount of 35%, 32%. For 20 years, for the length of the term of this agreement. So it's 32% discount for whatever the prevailing market rate is. There is really no pre-buy.
No, but we're pre-buying that capacity. So if we bought, I don't know from kilowatt hours, but we bought 100 kilowatt hours is what we bought, and we'd get that discount. But if we only use 90, we'd still have to pay for the 100 that we. So we sort of pre-buy the quantity, and the price we're locking in at 32% or whatever.
Discount, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Or another way to say it is we wouldn't want to commit to a contract that reduces $400,000 of electricity if we know we only need 300,000, right? Because if we did that, we would be committed to paying the developer for that electricity. It would be at a discount, but it would be more electricity than we need, and we wouldn't do that. So that might be possible if we went in today at 100% of what we spend. We're saying let's not go anywhere near there. Let's go in at 80%. But again, many contracts are being settled now at 10 and 12 and 15%. So at 32%, we were very pleased with the results of this, and we see it largely attributed to the ability to aggregate all of that legal and all of the bid development, the bid response, the bid prep work, the permitting process that the developer will have to go through with the Public Service Board. They are able to substantially reduce a lot of those costs by having a standard agreement and a standard process. I mentioned November 5th is the date in which to get this whole ball rolling, meaning time to produce electricity under the federal incentive from the developer's point of view. The developer can't apply for a permit until they have a customer, and we're the customer. So that's where CES has advised us that November 5th is plenty time for the developer to begin the work to apply the permit, for the permit with the Public Service Board, and be assured that we'll have electricity generating before December of 2016, because that's when the federal incentives are no longer assured. So page 9 is just a simple chart of how it works. You know, right in the middle, we're used to dealing with the utility. You know, cutting a check for about $300,000 a year for the electricity that we purchase. Under this arrangement, we are still have a relationship with Green Mountain Power, but we're actually paying the developer a discounted rate for electricity, and as the developer sends the electricity to Green Mountain Power, because we don't want to get into having to manage load, and we obviously can't deal with distribution. So instead of us paying Green Mountain Power for the substantial part of our electricity, we'll pay the developer. The developer will send the power to Green Mountain Power, and Green Mountain Power will work with our bill to essentially make sure everyone's compensated. So we did have a metric there on page 11 that indicates some dollar savings, and this illustrates what we were just talking about. Page 11. If we look at Wyndham Southeast, we're the last one listed. So our total demand, this excludes Brattleboro Town School District. They're another 100,000. Brattleboro Town School District has already secured a net metering agreement. They did that a few years ago. But this does include Guilford, Vernon, Brattleboro Union, and I did just notice on slide 12 that Dummerston wasn't listed. I got this at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I'll make sure that they are on there. But if we took 80% of our 374,000 there on page 11, this would be as a supervisory union, 80% of 374 is that 299, and that discounted would be 215,000, which is this $83,000 savings for us annually. And if we map that out over 20 years, that's a significant savings.
Frank, there's 2 entries here. Brattleboro High School, obviously that's the biggest saving. Then it shows BUHS District 6, estimated annual expenditures $1,000, and we save $224. What?
Yeah, I'll ask them to merge those two. They've looked at a couple of different meters, and some meter got split off.
Oh, okay.
But it should be consolidated. That's
Like that water hose.
Right.
We get the bill for.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a water meter, I think.
Yeah.
You can't subject a light meter to the net metering agreement. That's just not allowed.
Okay.
So it's not a light meter, but it is some meter that needs to be consolidated. We're looking at page 12.
Wow.
Yeah. So for Brattleboro Union, you know what we're looking at is approximately 71,000 on the far right. There is a year as a reduction of our operating costs, and that's at today's rates. And as Russ was helping to illustrate, this discount is based on a fixed percentage of whatever rate the utility sets. So if the rates go up, we'll save a larger amount as a proportion. If rates go down, we're going to continue to save this 32% of whatever we subject to the agreement. So some of the other background points here. Nextamp on page 13 was one of the vendors. It's a Vermont-based company. Unfortunately, they only provide 632,000 kilowatt hours in terms of the projects under development, and we need 12 million kilowatt hours. So we needed another partner, we had 11 proposals. We were very pleased that the second most favorable proposal was from an entity that could provide all of the rest for the consortium. And that was important for us because we wanted a standard contract, and we wanted a standard benefit to all schools. We didn't want some that got the really sweetheart deal and some that got the middle of the road, and then the poor fellows that came in, just because they happened to be in a certain region. So this design, this RFP was designed to say we want to be treated the same, and we want one legal contract, and we would like one rate. So we're pretty close to that. The Public Service Board, Competitive Energy Service, and Green Mountain Power are in negotiations right now to see if we can merge the 32% contract with the 35% contract and just give us one rate. If they can't do that, there might be a small differential, but it's insignificant among the 50 schools. Page 16, we have a little bit of an educational opportunity for our students and teachers in our community. We've asked the vendor to be, make available data and resources that might be of interest to our school programming. And 17 is sort of a summary of next steps, 17 and 18. And it's pretty straightforward. Tonight's the first night that I'm receiving these materials for you to consider. So Ron and I will be sharing this with all of the boards in our supervisory union, except Brattleboro Town, because they've already moved forward. If there are questions, I'll research them, and we'll make sure you have the information you would like. I am going to be sure to send you a copy of this statewide contract that was developed by several attorneys and with assistance from Norm Etkin with the Vermont Superintendents Association. He's the school energy consultant for the public schools. So we're using that statewide contract as the basis for the agreement, and that would be the document that the school board would approve, and it's a relationship with the developer. And this is a 20-year agreement, so that's why we're very careful about getting legal review and opinion, and really none of us wanted to be on our own in terms of school business managers, superintendents that were party to this. We wanted to be part of a group that was a serious player in in this net metering law, what was provided under the law. We wanted to have a good peer group. Another issue related to that is if there was, out of the 50 schools, a school that just decided to not operate a building anymore, this consortium is large enough so that any one member can transfer their credits to another member. It doesn't have to be within this group, but it's a larger enough group so it creates its own little market. So if there's some change, unforeseen change, we have the ability to assign credits to another entity and just get out of the business of this contract. That's one of the exit options.
Frank, when we look at the contract, is it basically a take it or leave it, or is there room for each board to negotiate?
We'd like to keep it a standard document, but that is an option.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I understand the uniform price and those sorts of things, but if something comes up along the line, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it is an option, but it's the kind of thing that would probably compromise the price, because their legal folks, the vendor's legal folks have gone through the process of negotiating the contract with the team that developed the template, the statewide.
So we're relying on CES to represent our interest in the negotiations,
It's-
like, basically?
Not so much when it comes to the legal agreement. They really had nothing to do with
So
the
then
legal
who's
agreement.
in the negotiation of that final contract?
That's, the key players were Norm Etkin, started the process of saying, I'm seeing way too many school boards and business managers getting into difficult situations around interpreting the terms of these net metering agreements. So several years ago, well, probably, I don't know if it's several now, but more than a year ago, he initiated a process to say, we need to help the schools if they're gonna move forward. He coordinated our legal review with the Vermont School Boards Association, the SBA, you know, your leadership representatives in Montpelier. So there was a legal review, not so much opinion, but from the School Boards Association's point of view, an interest in understanding, you know, where this is going. And then from there was Paul Giuliani, is a well-regarded attorney that's been in Vermont for 35 years. You may have probably signed an agreement with him for your bond.
Every time we do our long-term bonds, Jim Kane would work with Paul Giuliani.
So his firm has reviewed the contract and helped develop it. And then there was a lead firm that did most of the development writing, Gravel and Shea. I think they're based in Montpelier. They took it on as a pro bono public service project. So that's the evolution of that document, and I think it is absolutely critical that it was done in a statewide comprehensive
Yeah, I understand
approach.
Where is it cited?
That document is, I'm going to send it to all boards, and I don't have it right now. I have the draft version of it, but I'll send it as soon as it's available.
What about the project itself? The
Yeah,
geographical?
where is this physically located?
That is up to the developer to apply for permits to seek approval for location of the solar arrays. Many of these are on landfills. Those are generally the most financially attractive and best use. And several are in industrial zone property. So, but I can ask for more background on that, because at this point I don't have a location list. I think that is to be determined depending on how many sign up.
Because I would definitely be opposed to this if it were going to be sited on good agricultural land. The other question is, are the RECs, the RECs, staying in Vermont, or are they being sold out of state?
I'm not sure the answer to that question, but I'd be glad to.
Because I think they should be staying in Vermont.
I think that's regulated by the Public Service Board, but I don't know.
Not for individual homeowners. They can transfer them to anyone they want.
Yeah, I'll be glad.
Well,
to-
usually
Get you an answer.
GMP takes them and sells them out of state to keep,
You can retain ownership as an individual. I don't know how the
Well,
consortium would.
yeah.
Yeah, we're mostly interested as in terms of the consortium, in knowing we don't have a lot of options in buying electricity, and we wanted to pursue the same thing we do with a bulk oil bid that we do every year. We wanted to try to improve the terms of purchasing and save funds, but the stuff that we don't regulate in terms of how RECs are traded, we haven't researched, but I can certainly give you the answer on that. It's not something that will affect us, though, in terms of the financial arrangement.
it would certainly affect whether I voted up or down on this.
Speaking of which, what is the time frame for us? You have a November 5th, so you will want us to...
Sometime before that date, if we could.
Yeah, well, we have 2 October meetings, the 5th and the 19th we'll have, and November 2nd. So assuming we have the materials, we could do, is November 2nd cutting it a little close?
Yeah, I would think either on 2nd October maybe. Makes sense.
If there was other questions and you needed a follow-up, it probably would be better to give yourself one more meeting.
So I'll tentatively put it on for October 19th.
Okay, that's all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just had one question. It sounds like the bottom line would be next summer, it would be 12 megawatts of photovoltaic power that would be developed for this consortium. Is that correct?
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're not subjecting all kilowatts to the
Right.
project, it would be.
Oh, that would be
9.
12 just for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, no, it would be 9 megawatts for the
Oh, 9
consortium,
megawatts,
just
okay.
because we're not pushing all of it
Yeah.
into the agreements. Yeah.
Which sounds like a lot, but it's kind of interesting to note that in the town of Guilford, private developers this fall are putting in almost 1.5 megawatts. So it's a lot, but it's, it's not like all of a sudden the whole state's going to be covered with PV panels.
Mhm.
So,
That's what they want to do.
no, I don't think so.
Frank, on Putney, I see the expenditures low. Are they already in an agreement with something else, or we going to candle power?
Let me take a look. Putney, oh yeah, that needs to be updated too. That looks like just a piece of a meter, so. I know the BUHS number is familiar. So I did double check that, and I was at Guilford earlier this evening, and that is a good number. The Vernon number looks familiar, but the Dummerston number is missing, and so is the Putney, yeah. And no, Putney has not committed, as far as I know, to another contract.
Or candle power.
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought,
So-
do they turn the lights on at all in Putney?
Pedaling the bicycle. We have stuff
We have gym classes where they sit on stage.
Instead of lights, take some power.
Okay.
Yeah, did you see those Saturday morning, the smoothie bags? Pedal power.
Yeah.
It's a great space.
Any other questions? Comments for Frank?
I didn't mention the very end of the document is frequently asked questions, so you might find some of those useful. There is sort of an appendix that has a little more of the detail. I didn't go over that, but the last 2 pages, or actually it's the last 2 pages are frequently asked questions that I think might be of interest.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I can find my agenda. We've done all the administrative reports. Is there any unfinished business? Is there any new business other than what we've already done, which is approved the VSBA annual dues? Anything else for the good of the order?
Mr. Chairman. I move to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Thank you all very much.